Hello, everybody. This is Sean Martin, your host of the Redefining CyberSecurity Podcast. And as you know, if you listen to the show, I have the joy of talking to super cool and smart people about how we can operationalize cybersecurity for the benefit of the business. And I don't know if many people think about farming as a business. I don't know if it would make the top 10. People say, what are the top 10 businesses you think about? It's probably going to retail, right? Banking, the things that they interact with most of the time. And they might lump food supply in retail and not really go back to the source of all the stuff that we consume every day. And so when I saw Phillip and we connected, I was like, a CISO, a farmer, a technologist, interested in cybersecurity, a fellow CISSP. I thought, let's have a good chat about farming, food supply, technology, cybersecurity, and all that good stuff. And you have a great past and a great background that I think kind of shapes your thoughts on this. And I'm interested in getting into that as well. And you have a book coming out. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, Hacking Success. And I think you use some farming examples in that to help illustrate some things. So Phillip, it's a fantastic pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for joining me.
All right. Thanks, Sean. It's great to be here.
And before we kick it into gear on the topic, maybe a few words about some of the things you've been up to over the years and what you're up to now.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I've had the great pleasure of doing everything from app dev to infrastructure, most recently, probably the last 10, 15 years or so, cybersecurity. And throughout all of these things, a few things remain constant, right? How do we deliver better outcomes for our businesses? And for me, it's also not just about the business, it's about the people who use the products that a business produces. And I think that's perhaps also why the whole farming thing is such embedded in my DNA and my experience of how I do things, because connecting directly with the consumers of our products. Originally, our farm was focused on meat, but now we focus entirely on forage food, which is what the animals eat that we in turn may choose to eat or not eat. So it's kind of a life cycle circle from those building blocks of learning how to build applications to learning how to run those applications efficiently on infrastructure, and then how to secure those. Kind of mirrors that life cycle of, okay, we learn how to plant seeds in the ground and nurture them and watch them grow, keep them alive, and then they produce a fruit that either we as humans eat or other animals. So a lot of great parallels there in terms of the ethic and the ethos and the things that you have to bring to bear to be successful.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into those parallels. I quickly want to go back to some of your experiences. A lot of retail, Payless Shoes, Brooks Brothers. You spent some time at AWS and then at NetApp. And how did those experiences impact how you view technology and cybersecurity on the farm?
Yeah, sure. So
you think it gave you kind of a head start compared to maybe some other farmers, or I don't know.
Well, so it was while I was at Payless that we started farming. So Payless was headquartered in Topeka, Kansas, and I would say, I had a 90-mile commute from my home farm into the office, and almost all of that was through farmland. And everybody at work had some kind of a farming story. Either they had a farm on the side, or their grandparents or their parents were involved in farming, some kind of a family farm involvement. But as a business, right, we worked in the data center, right? We talk about server farms, and that technology at the time, right? We're talking about late 2000s, was an evolving time We were moving from predominantly virtualized machines, starting to eke into cloud computing. We were starting to see changes in the way that people ran applications. Software as a service was really becoming a major thing. And ERP systems were starting to be redesigned, reimagined to have better front-end application experiences. And so I got to be on the forefront of those things. Obviously, e-commerce, CRM, lots of mergers and acquisition type activity. And throughout all of those, I think it prepared me for that next step, working at Brooks Brothers, which was, a different kind of retail experience. Payless was serving every customer out there. I mean, about a third of Americans at the time were Payless use-source consumers. Whereas Brooks Brothers works more in a niche market, right? It's an upscale lifestyle brand, and when looking at the technology and the customer, that experience has to be elevated. Reliability is no longer just confined to, can I process a transaction? It's about, can I deliver that end-to-end experience that an employee needs to deliver to that customer when they come into the shop? So a much richer experience, and also, sort of embedding the technology in a more seamless way in the store experience. So that was a great opportunity there at Brooks Brothers. And from there, I went to Amazon, is a advisory consultant in the security advisory and assurance practice. And there I worked with lots of other major brands around the world, helping them with that transition to the cloud, something that I'd done for Brooks Brothers while I was there. And a lot of those farming themes were coming very much to the fore during this time period, because customers would look for, I have this thing, but it's not a physical thing anymore. It's very intangible. And I'm moving my data center into the cloud. Am I really moving it? What's happening with these applications? And so I started telling more and more farming stories to help people understand that, yes, there's connections with supply chain. There's connections with nurturing and growing things, and using those parallels from our experiences as growers to help people understand, what's this builder culture like when you're working in the cloud? How do we now think about container-based solutions as opposed to applications? And if I delve into some of the agricultural concepts, it's very similar now to how we procure chicken. In the old days, right, every farm had a few chickens, and you might have somebody who go around farm to farm and buy up chickens and bring them to the butcher, who would then, serve them in the small butcher shop. Now it's a very detailed integrated supply chain where there are hatcheries that produce the hens, and then there's loan companies that make sure everybody has the funds to buy the hens, and then transport companies. There's the people who have the hen houses, the actual farmers that grow them, people that then take them for slaughter and processing, and these very tightly integrated chains can be broken up into little units, very similar to how we think about running a business on containers, where each little piece, each microservice or each container now has to work both completely input and output in and of itself, but then interact in a broader way with other products and services. And, that's something I was able to bring to NetApp, is this sort of experience of large-scale cloud-based solutions for their world, which was, at the time, very focused on how to move deeper into the cloud-based world.
So help me with this, Phillip. I'm generalizing here, but I think a lot of organizations, certainly the folks that I talk to, focus really heavily on the technology. What technology can we acquire to accomplish something? But then it's driven by the technology. And I'm wondering, in the examples you just gave with the farming, it seems that perhaps farmers have a maybe more of an outside in view of, we need to get this food to the chicken to the to the house to those chickens to the right place. And how do we do that with technology? Because I don't know. I think about there's technology all over the farm, right? Tractors. I'm sure there's a bunch of software applications to manage books and things like that. But when you start talking about a supply chain and an ecosystem of growers and transporters and producers and retailers and the whole shoot and match, it can get pretty complex. And to understand your place in the chain and to ensure that you're upholding your end of the bargain, certainly availability becomes an issue. But how do, I guess really what I want, not everybody listening is a farmer here. So what can the CISO not on a farm learn from the farming CISO that kind of takes them out, assuming they're deep in the tech? How do I get the tech to do what I want it to do, and give them a more broader view of the business and what the outcomes are?
Yes, I think first of all, for a farmer, you're right. We focus on outcomes, right? What is the goal of what I'm doing? For me on my hay farm, I'm producing forage to satisfy local area growers who need hay for their livestock. For me, that's a relatively simple part of a much broader supply chain, right? Because that livestock is going to other places. But I focus on, I have to deliver X number of bales of hay over the course of a year to my customers. How I do that then dictates what technology I might need. So yes, I could probably do it all with a horse and a couple of pieces of equipment from the early 1900s, but I don't have enough time to do that, right? So the time pressures lead to technology decisions. And as time goes on, right, you might improve that technology in order to deliver either a higher level of output or an output with fewer inputs. That same mindset applies to really any business. But if, as a CISO, you're focused too much on the technology, you start to lose that connection with what your customers are looking for. So my advice really to every CISO out there is go back to the core, right? What is it your company does? Why does your company do it? Who are the customers that you're doing it for? And then what is that business policy? I'm not talking about rules or, cybersecurity do's and do nots. What's the business policy that you need to have in order to satisfy those customers, to deliver continuity of service or, availability of products or pricing? And that's really how most farmers see it is, I get up every day and I'm going to do these actions, not because it's on my to-do list. I'm doing them because I've made commitments, I've made promises. So farmers are very much into that mindset of I've told somebody that I'm going to do something. A lot of handshake deals still, right? Even in the very large businesses, the large corporations, there are miniature suppliers who are committing to, I'm going to deliver 5,000 hens every 8 weeks to Tyson, let's say. And all of these together form, what we expect as customers of, say, Kroger or Albertsons, right? I want to go to the grocery store. I expect to find chicken there. And if I don't find chicken there, I have no idea which farmer down the line has caused the problem. I don't know if it's avian flu in Texas that has, caused a lot of birds to be wiped out, that is now making the egg prices elevated in my grocery store down there. But as farmers, we take this very personally, right? We look at it and say, okay, we've had a failure point. We can't let that happen again. And I think every CISO takes that same sort of mindset in incident response. For them, every time you have an incident, some kind of a failure of something, and they want to get to the root cause. How do we make sure this doesn't happen again? And for farmers, we're more likely to look at the technology as an obstacle a reason perhaps why things didn't go the way they should have gone. But as a CISO in a tech company, you're more looking at the human side, right? Where can we do process improvement? Can we automate? Can we reduce humans out of the equation? A farmer may have the opposite viewpoint, and kind of bringing those two together, in my mind, I think has helped me a lot in trying to keep both the farm operation going successfully and security operations in large enterprises.
So talk to me a bit about, maybe we can, if you want to focus on your own farm, that's fine, or other examples, but I'm picturing a field. 1 year you need to produce so many acres, and the next year you see the demand for double the amount, and you want to buy another field, but that field's a few miles or in another county or something.
Right.
So now we have multiple fields, and what I'm trying to understand is the technology on the field, and then scaling that, because you have, and the people, I guess, is the other point I want to bring out here, is you have workers on the field, you have technology. It might be simple, like water, but I presume that's all controlled by some computer at some point to say, am I, based on the sun and the weather and the saturation of the ground, I need to water this area of the field a certain amount, in this area another amount. And so maybe a picture of the technology, because I think that view will help people understand how a farm looks. And then maybe in the scaling example that I started off with, how can you get an existing field solid and then scale that out? It probably ties to containers and cloud and things like that, but you can't put a person in the cloud, right?
That's right.
And I think there's something in there as well, perhaps.
Yeah, so the farms of 100 years ago, right, very little mechanization. Tractors were getting to be almost ubiquitous, but not across the board in the larger farms. But the size of the acreage that was being managed was pretty small. The number of people on the farms was tremendous, right? Your typical farm may have had 15 to 20 employees. Now, today's farmers most likely are going to be over 60 years old, and finding somebody else who wants to work on the farm is challenging, right? May have a family member or two that's in it with them. So we turn to technology. And all of those things that used to be done by hand can now be automated. Everything from the irrigation systems. We used to have pumps that we would go out and, you start the pump and you wait there until it's done its thing. And then we had, mechanical timers. Now those things are internet connected over LTE, and you can go to a web page, right? And you can see your fields. But we don't have to check the moisture in the field anymore, right? We've got IoT-based sensors that automatically check the moisture and feed it up into the same computer systems that you can then use to build routines. Just like at home, right? You might have Alexa, and you can configure a routine in there. You can do the same with agricultural solutions. And then the tractors, right? They can read that data as you're planting a field or applying fertilizer. It can read data from sensors directly in the field. So all of these things enable that farmer to manage greater acreage with the same number of human inputs. But it comes at a cost, right? That technology is very expensive, and it's not always the most reliable. And from a cybersecurity perspective, it lacks a lot of the robustness that you would expect in many other enterprise features and capabilities, using a lot of open source legacy equipment that is vulnerable to cyber attack. And we're coupling that with instrumentation from drones. Most of those drones are produced overseas with cloud-based solutions that take that imagery, and we don't have really good traceability as to how that data is being used, where it might be mined for malicious purposes, right? You hope it's not, but we don't have that level of confidence as an industry that we have everybody looking out for the best interests of the farmer. So as we go down this road, right, of a farmer trying to expand from, one field to 50 to 100 fields, the technology, yes, is a great additive, a great multiplier. But now, just like when enterprises moved into e-commerce or into cloud-based computing, the speed of movement predated the speed of cybersecurity protection. And it took the cybersecurity industry a while to catch up to virtualization, right? And then to cloud, and then to containerization, and now to artificial intelligence. We lag versus lead in many cases. And that we see the same thing in the agricultural industry. And we've got a lot of work to do. And the universities are leading in this space, unsurprisingly, right? The land grant universities starting to teach ag tech courses, which is great. University of Iowa, University of Wisconsin, University of Kansas all got good programs. And we need young people who may have left the farm to go back, right? You and I talked off camera about robotic milking machines and robotic dairies. UC Davis out in California, right? Huge program around that. But are people thinking about the protection of those robotic equipment and what it would do to our nation's food supply if they were attacked? We know what it looks like, water supplies being attacked, right? And Colonial Pipeline for distribution of natural gas. So we have to concern ourselves with these things in the ag food supply. Otherwise, we might not have food in our grocery stores, right? So it's a big issue to be worked on.
Yeah, and as I was thinking about the previous point that I was talking about, I was picturing the integration or the integration of physical risk and technical risk.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if some large organizations, those might be separate roles. In farms, maybe it's the same, right? I look at risk all the same for my farm, and if something's going to impact it, that's how I mitigate it. But talk to me a bit about risk analysis, risk measurement, risk mitigation from a farming perspective. Do you think there's a unique thing there that potentially other CISOs might gain some insight from?
Well, I think farmers are the best at risk analysis of anybody. We are so used to having to plan around the weather and plan against supply chain disruptions and plan for the unplannable, that we develop this level of resilience and adaptability. And we do risk calculations in our head all the time, every day, about, should we call the vet because this animal looks a little sick, or do we wing it for another day, right? Because you're balancing out those input costs, those output costs. And CISOs have a tendency to get built up into, I have to measure all risk, or I have to measure the risks that perhaps other people say, oh, these are the big things that we're worried about in our company. And you actually need to lean into intuition a little bit more of how, again, back to what is your business doing? How's your business operating? What are your business fundamentals? Understand those and let them lead into your risk analysis, your risk prioritization. Because if you try to calculate everything, you'll probably end up failing because there's just not enough time to do it. And understanding what are those things, in my book I talk about, if you're a farmer, how do you want to measure risk, right? Think about those things that would be catastrophic, business ending. Get those things out of the way first, and then think about those things that would be sort of the equivalent to a massive drought that kills an entire season's worth of crops. Worry about those things, and if after you've done all of those, then sure, go a little deeper. But it's important to just really really dive deep into that business modeling with your peers as a CISO, understand what they're concerned about, and then start leaning that into and blending it with what you know about the cybersecurity tech landscape that is delivering those results. Because if you can do that, you're now focused on, again, that delivery of whatever your company does to your customer. And if you can do that right, then you have a much better outcome for your cybersecurity program, and ultimately the business thrives more.
Yeah. So terms like, I'll list three: disaster recovery, business continuity, third-party risk management. Are those things that farmers look at formally as part of operations, or is it all, or is it more intuition? What I'm trying to figure out is, do they have teams dedicated or people dedicated to those three things? And do they leverage teams and technology to manage those things, or is it more intuition based?
Yeah, it's a lot more intuition based. In my book, actually, I talk about one of the scenarios of a farm that has a catastrophic failure, and their disaster recovery plan unfolds throughout the story as they start going back to paper records and manual operations. Now, a lot of farms don't have detailed written disaster recovery procedures, but they have this knowledge bank, usually built up over years of doing things, that they can then go back to. And I do think a lot of farms, even bigger farms, could leverage some of the discipline that come out of IT organizations. Business continuity planning is important. But there are places where you'll find better parallels, particularly around things such as managing biohazards, anywhere where there's government regulations, right, where you have to keep a formal procedure book of how you're dealing with things. Dairies are heavily regulated, and measurements of the quality of the milk, the temperature, all of those things will be present. And so they're more likely that a business that's got robotic milking and those kinds of things would have formal procedures for business continuity, particularly because if the milking machines fail, those cows still have to be milked. And so you've got to know where you have redundancy and what can you do in the event of a failure. Supply chain risk, the third-party risk management, I don't think has really got its way through the agricultural industry like it should. And we saw that right during the COVID-19 pandemic, when the suppliers of livestock couldn't get processing time because the meatpacking plants were very constrained, and what that did to the end consumer in the grocery stores. And so some farmers started going direct to consumer and alleviating some of that bottleneck, and quite a few farmers haven't gone back. Right, they've kept their on-farm butchering processes and continue to sell direct to consumer. Some online even. We're obviously familiar with Omaha Steaks, but there's lots of smaller regional producers now selling direct to consumer.
I love it. And let's look at some of the advanced technology. We can't get away from the two-letter buzzword, but there are things like drones and robotics, and I have to imagine that I don't know if people look at data as an advanced technology, but the amount of data we have from our own farm, from other farms, co-ops we work with, government entities. So how do those? We'll look at those three things plus data. So AI, robotics, and drones underpinned with data. How do our farmers looking to embrace those hopefully in a safe way?
Yeah, I think for AI particularly, there's a lot of promise for the farms. We still have to make a lot of value-based judgments about when to plant, when to harvest, and as the vast treasure trove of data starts getting mined and put into AI models, it should enable us to do better than the tables of predictive data that we have from historical reports out of the ag universities. Similarly, the data from drone footage, which can yield temperature-based analytics and soil quality analytics, we should be able to now start taking that data and applying it to more regional areas than has been possible in the past. And that has a ripple-on effect to broader society, right? Water quality, the use of pesticides, herbicides on the farm, fertilizers.
Dairy runoff into the streams.
Yes, and if we can get more precise about that, right? This is the word you hear in ag, precision ag. And if we can get more precise about that with the help of AI, then everybody benefits. The biggest benefit for the farmer is going to be lower costs. And I don't think a lot of people realize this, right? But farmers don't get paid a minimum wage. You are fully self-employed, and your income is realized when your commodity product is sold. And so the better you can manage those input costs and optimize your harvesting, cost of transporting your product to the grain elevator if you're a grain farmer, managing things like moisture content, all of those things are going to improve yields and do so with less effort. And so there's no one technology on its own that's going to get there for a farmer. It's going to be all of these things put in together, which is where you see companies like John Deere taking a real leadership approach. And they are offering both, everything from the financing to the equipment to seed to, helping farmers get into this tech, incentivizing, I suppose, companies who are innovating, say, the drone market to do things with their data that can benefit the farmer in the tractor, integrating with, say, Starlink, so that a tractor now has internet access no matter where you are, right, while you're driving around. All of those things are getting us closer to fully autonomous tractors. And once we get there, that opens up that possibility, for that field you were talking about in the next county over, right? If a farmer can manage 6 or 7 autonomous harvesting machines, now we don't have to have teams of, 50, 60 people. You can run those harvesters 7x24. Again, improving yields, reducing harvesting, hopefully reducing injuries on the farm too. That would be a very good public benefit if we can lower the health and safety outcomes.
Yeah, back to the human, of course. I love that. And let's close with this. I'll close with the book, but in terms of the farm, because you described the grain. So I had a scenario in my head of, and you talked about the moisture of, I presume, moisture in the grain, and you have to send it off to the I'll call it the dryer. It's probably the kiln maybe. Yep. So if you can get, the better you tune that, it saves money on the kiln, saves time in the process. Perhaps you're not over watering. I presume that saves money on the watering. So in that scenario, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that a little bit more, but does the farming industry have the data to make good decisions, or are we in the infancy stage of that, to where we need, kind of like cyber insurance doesn't have a lot of data yet either? So we're trying to figure out that. But do we have enough data in farming world to really see some impacts in the next few years, or do we have to collect a bunch more still?
I think we're still in the infancy, because a lot of the data that's been collected is historical data, and it's not very field specific. So as the precision ag gets into more and more tractors, and harvesters, so that you can see not just yield per farm, but now perhaps even yield per row, moisture level per row. You'll understand better how you want to manage your watering, how you want to manage your fertilizing, and we'll be able to see year over year where those input costs yield new benefits. And so, I think we're just in the early stages of really understanding how this data plus AI, which to me, AI and farming needs to become real time. As I pull data from a sensor, it's got to be able to look across the broader landscape of things that have happened on my specific farm, and look at the predictive weather analytics for my specific field, and then help me make a decision about what I'm going to do to better improve the viability, say, of a row of corn or soybeans.
It's super interesting, and I can't help but think all the great data, all the advice, but then somebody has to act on it still.
That's right.
So hopefully some of that's automated as well, but I go back to your intuition. If you completely rely on the tech and the data, and let's talk real here, don't think about the cybersecurity implications. Data could be poisoned. Machine learning models can be poisoned, manipulated. Who knows what could happen? Nation states, competitive farmers getting in and messing around with things. I want to go to, as we wrap up here, Phillip, your book. It's called Hacking Success. And so what was the driver for writing it? Who's it for? What do you expect them to get out of it?
Yeah, so the book's for business owners and company officers, and its focus again is on policy and how policy makes it harder for the hacker to have success. And so you as the business owner are now hacking your own success. You're turning the tables on the adversaries so that your cybersecurity outcomes are more aligned with what you're looking for from a business perspective. And if it's okay, could I read a short excerpt from the book?
Yes, absolutely. Please do.
Facts are stubborn things, John Adams said in his summation of the defense of the British soldiers being tried for murder in the Boston Massacre of March 5, 1770. Reason and facts must be the deterministic north by which executives set the course of their companies if they wish to protect against cybercrime, while simultaneously adopting the latest technology, whether it's cloud computing, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, or something not yet imagined. Guidance for business owners and decision makers routinely focuses on information and examples. An executive may emulate or derive benefit from them, but there is a finite ending to that approach. A leader who invests their time into applying reason and extending that philosophy to their teams will have an endless supply of winning outcomes. A beneficial mental model for securing information in the age of artificial intelligence is not something to be purchased. It must be developed. It is for this reason that the company's most senior leaders hold accountability for establishing policy to create that outcome and, by extension, protecting what matters most to their enterprise. To achieve a stable future, you must allow yourself to be challenged to think critically about past choices and future options. A strong trait of leaders is the ability to excite our imagination with their vision. The problems of the world cannot possibly be solved by skeptics or cynics whose horizons are limited by the obvious realities. We need men who can dream of things that were never and ask, why not? And that quote's from President John F. Kennedy. So that's a kind of a taste of what you can expect in the book. And, there's a story in there of a farm who has a successive series of bad days, and how policy, business policy, not, again, rules and regulations, helps them survive and overcome some of those challenges.
It's all about the operations. And I love imagination and vision. I think that's great. And then leaning into intuition. I think those are the couple points that I took from this conversation. Phillip, great chatting with you. I wish you tremendous success with the book. high yields from the farm and continued paying it forward in the cybersecurity community as a CISO, wherever you might land next, and whatever challenges you take on in that realm.
Well, thanks, Sean. Yes, I look forward to whatever that next role might be. Who knows? Lots of interest in various different quarters, but nothing yet decided. But just like the farm, right? We plant seeds and we watch them grow, and that's what I do with my career too at the moment. So lots more story to be written, I think.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, as the next chapter unfolds, you're welcome back anytime. Tell us more about what you're up to. And of course, everybody listening, appreciate you listening, and hope you glean some things from Phillip and his experience throughout his career, and the insights from the farming world. I'll put a link into to grab the book. It's on pre-order now. If I get this out before the 22nd of April, you can pre-order it. After that, just fire away and order away. So thanks everybody listening. Please do share, subscribe, and comment if you have ideas or thoughts or questions. And Phillip and I certainly would be happy to comment back. So Phillip, thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it.
Keep well, everybody.